Welcome to the Millionaire Journey Podcast. The goal of this podcast is to guide and empower you on your journey towards financial independence. Here's your host, Glenn Yaney.
Today, my guest is Kim Butler with Prosperity Thinkers. Welcome, Kim.
Oh, so happy to talk with you, Glenn. We're going to have some fun today.
I'm really excited to have you on. I talked to you before the show, but really, it's just like planets were aligning. Your outreach reached out to me. I read about you in a Heads I Win, Tails You Lose book, and then I started getting your YouTube feed, and then Gary Pinkerton mentioned you as well, and I was like, well, it sounds like we need to get Kim on the show, and yeah, I'm excited to hear your story.
Well, it is a fun one. It must start with in fourth grade getting a milk cow, because nobody else is ever going to tell you that. So for real, in Corvallis, Oregon, my parents got a farm and a milk cow. They were teachers, and they wanted me and my younger sister to have some summertime activity. My grandpa lived with us. And so I milked cows by hand for my entire childhood. We got a machine at some point, but my sister and I sold the milk for $1 a gallon. So this is, I'm thinking like 1970.
A lot of milk.
And we're talking whole milk, right? With the cream on the top and the whole bit. So, this is in the 70s. It would be $30 a gallon today, but thankfully inflation and milk don't always work that way. So I learned how to deal with money at a very early age because I was in 4-H and I had to keep records, and I was buying registered Holstein cattle. These are not cheap. So I had a whole business going literally all the way from 4th grade to 12th grade. And I showed in the fairs, and I did very, very well in the fairs, like the county and the state fair. And so I learned how to deal with money. I learned how to be entrepreneurial, all these good things. And without getting into too much, just fast forwarding, I went to college, which I paid for, a private 4-year college with all that milk money. And I got a job in the money world, which was originally at a bank right out of school, and have basically been dealing with that ever since. And I love helping people with money. And it is the least talked about concept in our lives, which is so sad because money isn't everything, but money affects everything.
Yep.
And then you layer in products like whole life insurance, which we're going to talk about today as well. And that is like the red-headed stepchild of the financial services industry. And so I've got some other things in my background that have caused me to be the contrarian. A quick story. From 6th grade to 12th grade, I played the tuba, like a sousaphone, a tuba, like that's what I played for band. Because why? Well, when I walked into 6th grade band, all my little friends were playing flute and clarinet. What did I do? Go the exact opposite way. Never mind that our band instructor, 300-pound male, was a tuba player. I thought I could do that, and I learned how. So there's been a lot of things in my life that have enabled me to just tackle stuff directly, deal with things that are emotional, and be okay taking a contrarian viewpoint and getting results.
Yeah, it's awesome. So it's funny how when you hear like with life insurance and you can associate life insurance and farming so well together. And it's one of the things that whenever I try to explain it to people, like how it kind of was created, it just makes sense. But if you think about all businesses, it's just like you're building your own little farm.
Yes. And it's like real estate also.
Exactly.
There are no two more similar products than life insurance and investment real estate.
Exactly. And it's with the house, it's what they would call is like the sacred cow is like we put all of our money into our house and really become illiquid. With the life insurance, it just creates more of a security, reserve that you're able to use when you need it.
Well said. I like to use the acronym CLUE, CLUE. We can control it. It's liquid. We can use it for whatever we want, and it acts like equity.
So if one thing I really loved about your story, I heard it over the weekend, a little bit of it. And it just kind of go into like how you even got into life insurance and really the process personally, how you've used it, just because that's my favorite part. I love to hear about people using it. And sometimes for me, it's like you listen to somebody that's selling life insurance, you think, well, we're always like skeptical. We always think, well, they're trying to make some money is what they're trying to do. And then the hardest part is that it's such like a taboo topic that it's like almost like talking about religion and politics. It's like, you're not going to it's like to convert somebody is a tough subject. So if you could just tell us about your story with like how you got started and how you rolled into that.
Absolutely. So I spent my first 3 years out of college at a bank. And at that time, banks weren't really doing investments, but the trust department of that bank was nearby. And so I got exposed to all kinds of investments and life insurance, but I didn't really understand it. And 3 years in, I'm really chomping at the bit to be entrepreneurial. So I leave the bank and I interview all across the city. This is Scottsdale and Phoenix, Arizona. And I interview stockbrokers and life insurance agents and certified financial planners and et cetera, people helping people with money. Now, this is before the internet. And I decided to go with a very small firm that did quote financial planning. Again, this is before the internet. So like the computer and the financial plan were these super cool things. And they also sold life insurance. And I had to call a variety of mentors, spiritual mentors, women in my life that were older, that dealt with people's finances, and literally ask them if it was okay if I worked with life insurance. I mean, that's how bizarre that product is. I have a very spiritual approach to life. And so I was literally concerned that it would not somehow be okay. So fast forward.
Can you bring that, like, what is the hang up on that? What was the hang up for being spiritual and the hang up that you were worried about?
Thank you for asking. Because life insurance in my head and in most people's heads deals with death.
Yeah.
And it also requires a physical approval. So especially in that era, you had to have a nurse come to your home. You had to give blood samples, urine samples, go through a ton of medical questions, et cetera. And because I have a spiritual background, I don't have knowledge of that medical background. So I was reading applications using words, medical terms that I didn't even know what they meant, nor did I want to be involved or ingrained in people's physical healths as it related to their medical file. And so that was the hang up.
So then after you spoke with your mentors and what was the next thing after that?
Well, I remember one of them specifically. She was an estate planning attorney, and she said, Kim, it's just a financial product. You're going to learn about it and treat it and utilize it like every other financial product out there. And so that gave me the freedom. Like, okay, great. So I dug in and started to learn, and I learned all of the wrong things. I learned how to do universal life and variable life and all of its cousins. I learned how to do what I would call typical financial planning, which is get somebody's data, shove it into a computer program, spit out this big document that says, if this, then these things will happen. So a bunch of assumptions, right? We know how to spell that word out, ASSUME. And I loved my time doing that. It was a fabulous 5 years. I learned a lot. I was very, very good at what I was doing. I got fabulous results. I didn't have children at the time. I poured every ounce of extra time into my profession and my learning and my designations and my licensing, et cetera, until one day when I woke up and I realized, whoa, something's way wrong. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Any questions about the first 5 years?
No, I'm love to hear the rest.
Okay. So, this, I don't want to be overly dramatic about it, but it was really a crisis of confidence. And the reason was because I was handing people financial plans, and it included life insurance and a variety of other things. And I knew that I had been in the back room with the computer tweaking those assumptions of those financial plans so that they would, quote, work. Mm-hmm. And so I'm handing these gorgeously printed documents. 4-color printing was super cool at the time.
When you say tweaking, what kind of tweaking?
Excellent. Changing interest rates, changing tax brackets, changing assumptions on inflation, changing time frames. Like, oh my gosh, if they do this, they can't retire at 65. They've got to work until they're 70 or 80. And changing up the fact pattern so that the plan would work.
It's somewhat like a syndicator changing the numbers, the CPI number, or what the rental increase numbers. Really, it takes just very little adjustments to the spreadsheet to move the numbers, and that's why it's always good to be conservative when it comes to that.
Absolutely. And you've got families that are relying on this document that says, if they do these things, then this is going to happen. So this is like basically 1990 to 1995. So it's a pretty good run of the stock market. So averages are real high, inflation's low, interest rates were reasonable, if I recall, at the time. But I knew in my heart that I was handing people false hope, and I was not okay with that.
Yeah, and that's literally the worry. Whenever I got signed up to get life insurance, I literally had the same thing. It's like, the worry is that when I sign up for this, the person's going to be long gone whenever it blows up in my face, and I realize that I just put too much money into it. Like, it's to in my opinion, to really utilize the family banking system, you really have to be all in. So it's like, for me, it could be like $60,000 worth of premium a year. So it's like, find out 10 years later, that's a big thing that happens. And I think that's why it's such a stressful. It's not, I don't know about stressful, but it's like, really, you can scrutinize and then have so much information from so many different people that have different motives and it's even when it comes down to the life insurance agents, they have these IUL agents, they have the IBC agents, the Nelson Nash people, then you have the general State Farm agents, not to point out whoever's wrong or who's not, but at the same time, there's so many people, and it's like, you're like, where do I go? I even ran into an issue just recently, and it's the debate of how much base and how much PUA. And that's the one thing I just ran into, and I'm like questioning, did I do this right? Or did I, and then in the end, it's a long-term approach if it's structured correctly. And, but that's the one thing that the big hang up with life insurance is really, there's so many different ways to structure it, and you just have to find the right person that is on your side.
Well, it is an interesting space. And for your listeners, just in case they don't want to hang out with us the rest of this time, whole life insurance, WHOLE, from mutual companies like Guardian, Mass Mutual, New York Life, Penn Mutual, Lafayette, One America. This is a 200-year-old product. And yeah, you can nuance the structure, but frankly, it's pretty hard to go wrong in any realm. Now, when you get into universal life and indexed universal life, that's only been around since the 1960s, 1970s. That is a completely different ball game. And there are literally hundreds of things that can go wrong in that space. And so if nothing else gets remembered, if somebody has purchased whole life insurance, WHOLE, make sure that it uses that word, keep it. You've absolutely, positively got to keep it.
Even if it's a stock-held company?
Well, that's an interesting nuance, and the answer is yes. So the stock-held companies still have the mutual arm that provide the whole life product that enable that product to do what it is supposed to do with certainty for somebody's life. Is it perfect? Could it be nuanced or structured slightly better? Probably. But the worst decision that people can make once they have purchased whole life is to cancel it or to 1035 it, right? So like in real estate, you have 1031s. Well, in the life insurance arena, you have 1035s.
What if the cash value on the policy is just not accumulates for a long time? We'll say 7 to 10 years. There's no really cash value. Like, wouldn't you say, if you're at the beginning stages of that, wouldn't you say that would be a time to do it, or no?
No.
What would be the reason why?
Because it's a long-term product. And I would be fairly shocked to actually see what you're speaking of, that a whole life product was not accumulating cash for 7 to 10 years. I would be pretty hard pressed to actually find such a thing. So there's maybe definitions of what accumulation means, but we've got to understand as human beings, and this is hard in all areas of our life, that this is a long-term play. You said it well at the beginning of the recording. You're starting a business, and that means you are writing checks and writing checks and writing checks and writing checks, and then you will get the benefits. It's like our health. I can't eat a donut tomorrow and then feel like the next day I just go back to veggies and I'm good. No, that donut's going to have a role to play. And if I do that every single day for many, many years, it's going to have a massive impact. I remember talking with somebody, this has been quite a while ago. She had been a smoker for her lifetime and she quit smoking. And about a month later, she was like, well, why am I still breathing heavy? Oh my gosh, you can't stop smoking for a month and get all that garbage out of your lungs and expect to transform. So the whole life insurance space is the same way. I mean, completely opposite, thankfully, because it's all about the positives. But yes, it's a long-term play. Yes, once you've bought it, you should keep it. No, do not let somebody talk you out of a centuries-old product just because it's not tweaked to the edge of its life with perfectness.
Say you were into a product that you didn't realize, or we'll just say, like, for my scenario, say if it was like a $60,000 a year annual premium and cash value really didn't start growing until a couple years into it. Don't you think that there's some issue with not having access to the cash value just because of just having where was I going with that? Just can't think of the right saying, but really where you're like losing your chance of getting returns.
No, absolutely not. I'm not sure where you've picked that up, and maybe you're just having fun playing devil's advocate, but that is wrong. Let me share a perspective with you that will be helpful. The infinite banking community, the people that want to borrow against their cash value to solve emergencies and take advantage of opportunities, which I am a huge fan of. I was one of the original people that got Nelson Nash's book and helped him get all of his material out there. Work towards that maximum cash value, minimum death benefit approach. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as they are also building in term insurance for human life value. Mm-hmm. There is an alternate approach, and you could call it the estate planning approach. You could call it the Rockefeller method. Garrett Gunderson's made that whole routine really popular. That is actually the opposite. It's low cash value, high death benefit, because those families are going after that death benefit. Now, understand, low cash value does not mean no cash value. It just means maybe the infinite banking one is that 70-30 approach where it's 70% cash value, 30% death benefit. And the Rockefeller approach might be 30-70, okay, where it's 30% cash value, 70% death benefit. There is nothing wrong with either way. If whole life is there for the centuries that it has been, and whole life is going to be there for the centuries that it could be. You and I are speaking with people today that will live another 100 years. A 20 or a 30-year-old today absolutely positively could live another 100 years. That whole life product, it does not matter what is going on in the first 2 or even 10 years. Do not let people talk you into a short timer's attitude with a long time product.
Definitely. Yeah. So that's a lot to think about. I don't know. So my main thing, when I first started looking at IBC, I was very focused on the cash value. But then over time, I listened to a lot of podcasts, listened to a lot of information, and I started coming around to the capitalization of whole life policy. And really say if you do have you put, we'll just say easier numbers, like 100,000, and you end up with, whatever amount at the front end, you're paying for the growth on the back end of the policy is what I've learned a little bit. So it's definitely, I've just recently started talking to other insurance agents. Not that I'm trying to look for a better route, but at the same time, it's they're kind of poking holes through my own policies. So then I start thinking, I'm like, well, maybe I did the wrong thing, and it's it's the hardest thing with, once you build these policies out, that you got to stick to it. But then, in the long-term approach, what you're saying is that it's really just protecting you from the ultimate downside, plus the just having liquid cash reserves.
Well, we put money in 401ks and we put money in real estate, knowing that that is potentially locked up for 30 years, right? 59 and a half for the 401k or your real estate deal, however long. We don't hesitate to do that for 1 second. So why are we demanding of our life insurance policy that it be liquid and cash flowing positive in the second year or the third year? Now, interestingly enough, if you do the maximum cash value, minimum death benefit approach with the maximum paid up additions, you will positively cash flow. And what I mean by that, and in the third year, I should finish my sentence, you will positively cash flow in the third year.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is that the premium and paid up addition that you make will cause a corresponding increase in cash value in the third year. And it might be between the third and the fourth year, depending on age, but that's positive cash flow. Now, is it cumulatively breaking even? No. Year plus year plus year plus year, that's cumulative. That's usually out there in the 10th year. But that's okay. You have a death benefit. Last time I checked, death is a guaranteed event. Yeah. So we want to tie that guaranteed event to a guaranteed payment called life insurance death benefit. And oh, by the way, if we're a real estate investor or if we're an entrepreneur, we have businesses or our family is wealthy, or even if we just have stocks, bonds, and mutual funds and 401ks and other things like that, that death benefit will come into play during our lifetimes as beneficial to the other assets that we have. So you're going to utilize cash value from, say, age 30 to 70, and then you're going to switch your focus to death benefit. And in your 80s and 90s and hundreds and 110s, the death benefit is what is going to play the massive role for you while you are living. And so please take the time to get the extra learning about the second half, if you will, of the policy that you have already bought. And take it from someone that puts over 6 figures of premiums and paid up additions in. Not every year, because I don't have perfect cash flow either. But 20 policies, 19, 27, it depends on the year that you're talking to me, because sometimes I have the term insurance in place and sometimes I don't. But I started when I was 24. I didn't know what I was doing, but I learned and I kept learning and I kept doing what I needed to do, which was to pay those base premiums. In my early years, I didn't even add paid up addition dollars other than the little minimum required. So I didn't have the extra cash flow. And those policies have turned out beautifully. They are doing just fine.
Hey guys, if you want to learn more about our deals we're investing in, go to our website and sign up for our free ebook, 10 Reasons Mobile Home Parks Outperform Other Real Estate Investments. We won't spam you. We'll just keep you updated on the podcast and the deals we're working on. Now, back to the show. Also, just to compare it back to real estate, there's a few things I actually thought about when you were saying, is that a lot of people, when you buy your house on the market, it's all over the internet, you buy a house, you get it, whatever price you pay, there's still, even if you put, we'll say 20% down, which I would say a lot of people don't do that. I've never done that. Bought many houses, never put 20% down. But the part is that if you were to sell the house the next day through real estate agents, transaction fees, and everything along that, you would lose money as long as you're buying it at market price. So that's kind of like to think about the insurance portion of it. And then the other thought I was thinking of is that my first house, I paid, and this wasn't even that long ago. It was in 2013 was my first condo. And I think my mortgage was about $300. I found a condo. It was a small condo, but I was worried about the payments. And,
of course.
And what I could tell you is just like, also with inflation, is like these payments will get easier and easier to pay. And that's kind of whenever I set my policy up, that was kind of my thought process, is like, yeah, this seems like a lot, but in 10 years from now, it should be just like part of living. Like this is what it is, and we're building up protection and also, life insurance.
Yes. There are two things that inflation benefits. Only two that I'm aware of. Mortgage payments, and life insurance premiums.
Yeah.
Specifically, whole life insurance premiums that are fixed, right?
Exactly. Awesome. So kind of going off of that, like when you first started, you bought, your life insurance, and then like what we've never really talked about it on the podcast. I probably had about 10 whole life, IBC type, practitioners, and never really spoke about like the family, policies and stuff like that. What's your experience with that? And why would you have 20 policies?
So because our income typically increases over our lifetime, we should be saving, as a verb, the act of putting money away, more and more and more money. And so when you buy your first life insurance policy, you have a minimum and a maximum. So let's just say you're doing maximum, which is the goal. After a period of time, you said it well, inflation plus your ability to earn more money is going to enable you to save more. And the best place to save more, again, save as a verb, is to pay more life insurance premiums. So I just layered in, I didn't know what I was doing in the early years, but every time I went to a conference, every time I got training by Todd Langford of Truth Concepts, who's now my husband, but wasn't then, I would come home and buy myself another whole life policy. And so every 2 or 3 or 4 years, another policy. Maybe it was on my husband at the time. Maybe it was on myself. Maybe it was on a key person. Well, then when I had children, I thought this makes all the sense in the world. And at this point, I had learned, because I've been in the business now about 7 years, I had learned the difference between whole life insurance and universal life insurance. And I was very clear that universal life was not the way to go, even though I owned some of those policies. I don't have them anymore, but I owned universal life. I owned variable life. So when my children were born, I wanted to buy whole life on them. It just made sense to me. So when they were 1 and 2, I bought small policies. When they were 6 and 7, I bought them a second round of, I would call them medium-sized policies. I mean, it's all relative, right? And I still own those policies. Those are my assets. Now, my children, I worked out of my home literally since the internet began. I've worked remotely, and big thanks to Robert Kiyosaki for helping me create a business that way. But my children have listened to me talk about life insurance over the phone for their entire childhood. And so, for example, my son, when he turned 18, he already had a really good summer job. And though he was going to college, he knew that he was going to have that summer job throughout the summers. So he bought his first life insurance policy literally the day he turned 18. He, first time you're an adult, right? He got his physical exam and he signed the papers. My daughter didn't buy her first one for a few more years till after college because she didn't have the same summertime job, because you got to have consistent income to make it work. And so now I've got policies on 4 key employees, myself, my husband, my kids. My kids have their own, and we have grandchildren. I have nieces and nephews. Now you can't actually buy insurance on nieces and nephews, but my siblings can, right?
Yeah. On
their own grandchildren and their own children. And so this is just something that our family has done. It is a part of our DNA. When you're young, you buy life insurance. And, for the 22 to 30-year-old kids that are listening to your podcast, at that age, $100 a month, $500 a month does wonders. And you are building a foundation. Just like, think about it like a house, right? If you want to build a 10-story building, you better have a really solid foundation. So if you have really big goals in your life for the net worth that you want to create and the businesses that you want to do and the real estate that you want to invest in, et cetera, make that solid foundation as big and as broad and as robust as you can. Well, is your 401k a foundation? No, it's a bedroom or a bathroom. Is a savings account at a bank a foundation? No, it's taxable and it's public. You want something that's private, that's just going to be boring, but effective, like the cement that you pour for that building.
Yeah, I could tell you that real quick before I go further before I forget, for everybody wondering, a lot of people don't know who Todd Langford is. if you look him up on YouTube, I would recommend watching it on YouTube. If you listen on a podcast, you're going to not know what's going on because he goes through very in-depth, in my opinion, myths of like our beliefs of what things are. And what he does is he actually spells it out, the numbers and everything. And when he goes into it, it's like, it makes it, you'll turn into Kim Butler. You'll buy 20 policies. You'll be like, this is what you need to do. This is the way. And so I love watching him go through the breakdowns of like paying off a house or not paying off a house and putting the extra payments into the premium, being liquid compared to paying off loans and the most appropriate way to do that. And what Todd, from what I understand, is Todd educates insurance agents on like how to communicate with their customers, because it's really just like, if you saw the breakdown of it, it kind of helps a lot. And it's like, and he pokes right at the problem. Like, hey, you're going to lose money on the first half or not, in the first year or two, and then you break into it and then you really opens up opportunities. So for my personal experience and like what you were talking about, and what maybe the reason why I'm so obsessed with life insurance right now, there's a few reasons. There's been a few people that died somewhat close to me, and it's very sad at the, normal ages. They died at like 80 years old, 90 years old. But really, it's like if they had life insurance, I think what's happened is when that person died, they died, it changed their spouse's life. Like, as in, like they had to change their living situation or make very difficult financial decisions that they're not used to making. And that was the thing that I saw on one side. The other thing I saw was that I have a bunch of real estate and two things really. One was I needed to start saving more cash reserves for banks to be able to underwrite us correctly. Like when they say you need to have so much liquid, that was the main reason why I was like, okay, I need to start saving cash to be able to be financeable to these banks for these big loans. And then the other one was we had 2 hurricanes come back to back, and with mobile home parks, and and we bought a bunch of properties where we didn't have the CapEx saved. We were just going to cash flow it. So I started to get a healthy fear of what it's like to not have a good reserve. And, the more I get into it, the more I understand that, Gary Pinkerton talks about it through Paradigm Life, is to have like 30 to 40% of your net worth in liquid assets. And I think to myself, that sounds extreme. But then I start getting into this. I'm like, well, if your net worth is $1 million, you have 250,000 or 300,000. But if your net worth is 3 million, he's like, guess what? If you have all these assets and nothing liquid, when 2 hurricanes hit and your personal primary residence you have to move out of, and all these things start happening, it doesn't matter what your net worth is if you're illiquid. And that was like the main driver. And that happened. I mean, I got the policy in June. Hurricanes happened in October, November timeframe of last year. And then we bought all these properties up to that point as well. So now I'm like scrambling around to try to find funds to manage the properties. And also, I mean, I had my own personal rental property. I had to come out of $125,000 in cash. And, so like that hurts. And to go a little bit longer, I'll just say that actually hurts cash flow, because guess what? I don't have any revenue or income because I have to put it into the properties. So I have to have this reserve to maintain cash flow. Because if you don't have the reserves, the cash flow stops. You don't get it. You have to take all your revenue and put it into the property to keep your cash flow going. And that's kind of what my experience was this past year. And then I started to get a healthy fear of not having enough reserves is what it pretty much. And I think the best place to keep it is in life insurance.
Well, it's so interesting to me to watch our very successful real estate investors, and they are successful, because of the cash positions that they have.
Yeah.
So I talked about savings as a verb, but now we're talking about savings as a noun. Where do you store your cash? And everybody should be able to answer that question. And so instead of seeking out that high yield savings account and getting 11 1099s because you moved it every month trying to get a little higher interest rate, just store your cash in a mutual life insurance company so you don't get a 1099. And for every real estate deal you do, get another policy. Every real estate deal you do, get another policy. And let that cash be the emergency / opportunity fund for that real estate deal. Because you're going to have emergencies that you'll need to solve, either vacancies or roof repairs or whatever they are, but you're also going to have opportunities. And so you think about cross-collateralizing in real estate. Well, cross-collateralize with life insurance. Take this real estate deal's policy and go get another real estate deal.
So here's something that's been on my mind. I haven't asked anybody this, but I talk to a lot of life insurance guys. So say my policy is going to, eventually the cash value should be around $5 million, which is insane. Like very far down the road, like I think around, ideally, hopefully around 70 years old. In that time, so I have, say, 5 million cash value, and I will say that some of it is lent out, or it's been lent to me, not the cash value, but it's being borrowed against. What happens when it's like, if you have like $5 million, you have 4 million borrowed against it? Like, what is that? Like, it just seems like that you're paying a lot of loans for this money. It's like, how do you justify that? Because that's the big one for me. It's like, I don't know if I'll ever have to have 5 million cash in the bank. And maybe I could have the choice, obviously, during retirement. But at the same time, it's like, I think it would be lent out. So there will always be these interest payments.
So you've brought up a really critical point, and I think it's one of the most dangerous aspects of the infinite banking community is this whole idea of borrow against, borrow against, borrow against, borrow against, and never pay back. So let me be very specific with you. If you have 5 million and 4 million of debt, then that debt, and let's just say that the interest rate is 6% on it, because insurance companies charge fixed rates. So 6-7% as a fixed rate might be a little less.
Yeah.
Is a pretty solid number. Then that 4 million of debt or leaned against cash value, you said the words correctly, darn well better be in real estate deals that are producing cash flow.
Yeah.
And the cash flow from those real estate deals needs to be paying down the debt.
Yeah.
Sure, you can do interest only for a while. And in the build-up phase, that's fine. But I recommend that by the time you're in your 50s or 60s, especially if you started back in your 30s, you want to be paying down the principal on that cash value. Now, is it true that upon death, the loans will be paid back? Yes. But we have got to get clear, as I said earlier, we're going to be living well past 100. If we're healthy today and we're in, midlife, we've got another 60, 70 years to go. You can't keep paying interest all that time. Cut that time in half, build up, borrow against, pay interest only for the upswing, but then you darn well better figure out ways to pay the loan back for the downswing. Now, maybe that's selling some deals and paying it back in big lump sums. Maybe it's just skimming the cream off the crop a little bit more and taking the cash flow off the real estate deal to pay those loans back. But your goal should have all those loans paid back by the time you're in your 70s, 80s. I mean, even 90s would be okay, but you better have a very specific approach and focus on paying those loans back down to zero, principal included.
I also, just to go back to the milk topic, $1 milk per gallon and $30 today. I think when we think, just in general, we're thinking linear, but we're not thinking exponentially. So like that, ideally, $4 million has been cycled through a few times so that the cycle of the 4 million, if it is 4 million and it's borrowed 4 million, I'd like to think that I've cycled through it 4 or 5 times up to that point. So the cash flow should be very strong. and then still cycling back into the policies.
Absolutely.
And that's the one thing. And also, I know you can talk about this, like underestimating what we're going to need. Like 5 million sounds like a lot of money. And I was explaining this to somebody the other day. 5 million sounds like it is a lot of money. But when we get to, for me, I'm 39 years old, so I'll be 30 years from now. So what's $1 million going to be in 30 years from now, which I could see it being worth a lot less than what it is today. So,
well, the title of your podcast, when I saw it, I kind of laughed because everybody uses that number, right?
Yeah.
A millionaire.
Yeah.
Did you know, and I don't have the numbers on top of my head, this is a total Todd Langford thing. The movie A Wonderful Life, where the man talks about utilizing his life insurance at the bank to borrow against to solve his problems. When he is a child, he goes in and rings that bell and says, I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a millionaire. Todd did the math, and that would take something like, I wish I knew the numbers. I want to say $40 million or something in today's numbers. It's insane. And we still use this millionaire number. And as you said so well earlier, or maybe it was Gary Pinkerton that said it, net worth means nothing. Net worth does not put food on the table. In Texas, we have a saying, big hat, no cattle.
Yeah.
That's kind of what net worth is like. It's a big hat. Well, what's cash flowing for you? That's really where it's at.
And a big example for me is, I've watched, people lose everything through 2008, and the people that were in business in 2008 that remained solvent. I don't know if there was much, there wasn't too much strategic moves except for being solvent in 2008. And guess what? The people that did that became successful, and it's through being a solvent. And I think that's the big part of it, is like having a respect for that reserve and being able to take advantage of certain opportunities. Obviously, more solvent you are, the better you'll have. Obviously the rich get richer, and the reason why is because of solvency. So
cash and liquidity provide peace of mind. And it's why when I talk to these young families, oh my gosh, please do not max out your 401k until you have built your emergency fund. And I get it. If you don't want to buy life insurance, that's fine right now, but you must build that emergency fund and identify the number for you for your emergency fund. And if you're an entrepreneur, maybe it's for you personally and then another one for your business, right? Like Oprah Winfrey has publicly stated, this was probably 10, 15 years ago that I heard this, that her emergency fund is $7 million. Well, no surprise. Her annual expense requirement is, I'm sure, that, if not more. And so it's all relative, and
might be light, actually. 7 million might be light.
No kidding. Well, here's the thing. Cash flow issues do not go away. They just get bigger zeros on them. So you're struggling with, am I going to make this $10,000 payment on a condo? Somebody else is struggling with, am I going to make this $100,000 payment on this apartment building? And somebody else is struggling with, am I going to make $1 million down payment on a hotel or whatever? So it's all the same. They just get more zeros on them.
There's right now, through this hurricane, we've watched land prices go down on this one area, Davis Island. It's one of the nicest places to live on in Tampa. And the land prices have gone down aggressively. And you're like, it could flood again. But the prices there, like you could probably buy a piece of land for $600,000, which normally it would be like 1.2 before the hurricanes. And you're thinking, well, there's always going to be rich people that want to live here. It's like that nobody wants to get there, but it's like if you actually had the opportunity to get on, make an opportunity where it's like you don't have to make your 10% returns regularly. You can just be liquid to create way more upside. Like I firmly believe that land prices are going back to 1.2 million eventually there.
Oh yeah.
Just because of the amount of wealth that's on that island. So it's like, and they're available. I can look on the MLS right now, and there's a 650 house ready to be torn down on Davis Island. So it's like, you could probably get a cash offer for 550 right now. So it's like, before the hurricane, 1.2. Today, it's 550 to $600,000. And those are the opportunities that I see with being liquid. And also, you don't even have to put up. It's not even as much risk, because you're kind of making sure bets. Not that it's a little speculative, but at the same time, it's like, it seems like a pretty good bet that it's going to go up in value because of the amount of money that's in that area. So as long as you're betting on either rich getting richer or the poor getting poorer, those are the two options. The middle class might be a riskier bet for me, but I like the two options. It's like, you focus on, where there's always going to be growth in people getting richer in those areas,
Yep. Well, it's why I call the life insurance your emergency/opportunity fund. Yep. It lets you take advantage of those opportunities.
And then the last thing I'm going to say is that there is a cost of capital. And what you were saying about like because of it being life insurance, it's considered tax. It's tax-free growth. And then with that, you get the, if you have to borrow the funds, you're between 4 and 6% that you have to pay. So now you have to, ideally, your life insurance is still growing, your cash value, and then you're borrowing it. Now you have to make sure that you're like, okay, what's it worth to me to borrow against this? And that's the big one for me, because I look at that money as investor capital. So I have to look at, even though it's mine, it's going to be, I have to use it, treat it the same way. And if I'm borrowing against it and only paying the minimum payments, it doesn't make sense to operate like that. So like right now, I think of it, all of it costs 15%. I might have a 4% interest rate on it,
right?
But it's a 15%, has to be 15% cash on cash return. And if it doesn't, there's no point in pulling it out.
Absolutely. Yep. Well said.
Cool. So where can people find you?
prosperitythinkers.com, and we will make a special page for your listeners so that they can get one of my little reports that I love to write that is not available to the public. So do you want that to be /Glenn or /millionaire? What would you like?
Millionaire sounds good.
Awesome. That is what we will do. And I'll look forward to welcoming your community inside.
So it was great to have you. I'm excited. Kind of the planets aligned. Everybody talked very highly of you. And thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome. You enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Millionaire Journey podcast. Please rate, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with somebody you think would enjoy listening.